right, good evening and welcome to the December 17th, 2020 meeting of the Grafton Mass Disability Commission. I'm Roger Trahan, Chair of the Commission, and I call this meeting to order. As a preliminary matter, please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Daryl Reining.
Aye.
Christy Proctor.
Aye.
Melissa Lackey.
Aye.
Catherine Dorr.
Aye.
And Jen Pearson.
Aye.
And of course, Roger Trahan, aye. Anticipated speakers, I don't have any in advance. This open meeting of Grafton's Disability Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. I'll pause for a second. Matt Offen, are you with us now?
I am.
Excellent, welcome.
Thanks.
The order, which you can find posted on the town's website at www.grafton-ma.gov, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment, if any comes in. For this meeting, the Grafton Disability Commission is convening by video conferencing via Zoom, as reflected on our agenda, which is posted on our commission's webpage on the town website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. I'll stop here and acknowledge that I did send you some emails today that are not part of the meeting packet that will be discussed, but that should make it to the eventual minutes. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda, but before doing so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. I guess we've kind of been lax a little bit on that, as long as we're well behaved. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first read public comments and questions received in advance of the meeting, followed by real-time board and/or applicant responses. I didn't have any in advance this evening. Public comments during the meeting will be conducted through the chat feature in Zoom, and the chair will read real-time comments and questions typed by computer participants in the chat feature, followed by real-time board/applicant responses. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay, announcements. I put together 3 announcements that are pertinent to what we do here, and I'll then request any other input on announcements. Billionaire Mackenzie Scott just donated $5 million to the United Way of Central Mass and some other monies, I'm not sure of the amount, to 22 Easter Seals affiliates nationwide, including Massachusetts. This is part of a $4 billion giveaway to nearly 400 organizations. So between United Way of Central Mass and Easter Seals of Mass, this will be huge in assisting for services and programs for those who have a disability, their families, their caregivers, and such. So shout out to Mackenzie Scott. The second item for announcements, Joanne Duncan in the Select Board Town Administrator's Office. I requested and she went forward with updating our Zoom meetings from January through July. Thank you, Joanne. So you may have already received or will soon receive that string of invitations by email. And then third and lastly, under my announcements, I ended up, and I don't know if I really haven't asked anyone if anyone objected, but I'm hoping no one objects, I guess after the fact, but I've been trying to, and most recently I ended up posting our meeting packet link in the Zoom links on Facebook, on All Things Grafton, the Grafton Group, Grafton Informed, and my own Facebook wall, just because, for a public service. So as many people, there are thousands of people on those combined sites. So I took the liberty of doing that. Anyone have any objections to that? Oh, cool.
Objection, but have we considered having our own Facebook page?
It would need to be accessible. There was a drawback to certain Facebook and other social media platforms. We could certainly, I think it's come up in prior meetings, but as far as we would need to make sure that in doing so, we really went forward to get as many of those people on the combined Grafton sites to be at least notified when something comes up regarding one of our meetings. So it should be equally effective in calling attention to the meetings and how to access them. But I guess we could put that on a future agenda as far as using social media platforms to.
Yeah, we could share the what we did on our page to anywhere. We can
Mhm.
share our status.
Right. I guess I could put it on a future agenda to delve into getting the word out. But thus far, I've been doing my best to advertise it, knowing that probably a combined 5,000 people are on those sites. So anyway, any other announcements that anyone has?
No, just a comment, I guess. I think it's a great idea to advertise our meetings and yeah, post links to the packets and everything, just always helps, I guess, to get visibility on what's happening in town and with this commission. And there's a lot of work going on. So I'm in big support of what you're doing. It's great.
All right, thank you, Matt. Any other comments regarding that agenda item? All right, correspondence. I didn't receive any correspondence in the context of people reaching out affirmatively just out of the blue. Okay, there have been communications that I've shared with you that I wouldn't necessarily consider under correspondence. I would consider them under the respective agenda items. Item 3 on the agenda, which has been a standing item, the Grafton ADA Self-Eval and Transition Plan Subcommittee update between Catherine and Matt. I know we spoke about this on the 3rd and we discussed the format, and that was a very productive conversation. Catherine and Matt, did you get a chance to connect at all since our December 3rd meeting?
We haven't. Catherine was very good. She sent me all of her availability. Thank you for that, Catherine. I've been slammed and I just frankly haven't had the time to put into it.
Right. It's been a challenging year, and me personally, it's my busiest time of year at work, and just putting this meeting packet together was the biggest challenge. You probably saw some 1 a.m. emails, but that's okay. We just roll with it. And at our last meeting, where Daryl and Christy, you weren't present, we had, I guess, agreed by consensus regarding Missy pointing out that she, being the clerk, had volunteered to, and it would be her role to monitor and keep the Excel spreadsheet updated that Matt had created and that Catherine and Matt are working on, that would be further contact. Melissa would be looped in, and maybe it could just be through the meetings to keep that spreadsheet up to date. And I think we had talked about some type of Google method to keep that maybe on the website. I don't know how that's done. As far as editable docs or protected documents that aren't just in people's personal computers, but as updated, could be accessed by any one of us, maybe from our webpage. We don't have to solve that problem tonight. Not that it's a problem, solve that issue tonight. I think we spoke about it at our last meeting. What was that? If someone could refresh my memory regarding the computer program or the method by which we could have that accessible to us.
So
Roger,
what you're asking.
I think we had brought up the potential of speaking with the new incoming management analyst and communication specialist
Mhm.
and seeing if that was something that they might be able to help us either set up, whether it be
Okay.
in Google Drive or what the case may be with that. And that might also dovetail nicely with a discussion on possible Facebook page or however that would work.
Okay, Matt, question for you. Was it discussed in your meeting on Tuesday at the select board? What the progress is as far as, did you actually vote on hiring someone for that position?
I believe the position's been hired. The gentleman's name is William Blake.
Oh, awesome.
His resume looks good. He's got a bunch of municipal government experience. He also has a pretty good background in like that communications side of things. It was a bit of a challenging position because we had the management analyst side of it, which is, you know, business analysis and process management and organizational management, that whole side of it. His resume is a little bit more on the communication side, which might lend itself to what we're looking to do. So
Right.
yeah, I'm not actually sure when he starts, but we've agreed to move forward with that position. So that's good.
Awesome, awesome. And then and the other piece of that position was grant writing. So between our really working and getting the website accessible and also trying to get monies, it's nice to have that dual aspect of the position in one person.
I
So,
believe
sorry, just for
during
the
that
minutes-
meeting that, I'm sorry, I believe Carter had said he was expected to start January 4th or the
Okay.
first week of January, I believe.
all right, thank you, Jen. Anyone else have any comment on?
Yeah, I have just have a clarification for the minutes. This is the grant writer and also as an assistant. We eliminated the assistant town administrator position. And I know that we were going with somebody who's going to function as a grant writer, but what is their official title going to be?
How about I email you the official title? It's
Okay,
Okay.
it's
I just wasn't
managed.
sure what's it. Okay.
Yeah, it's management analyst and communication specialist, but I'm not sure what the actual title is.
okay. All right. Thank you, Matt, for doing that. So moving on, Parks and Rec updates. This doesn't have to be a big discussion. I know that Jen Anderson has been gracious with her time at numerous meetings. So I'll touch upon that. Our meeting was the 3rd. All right, so it was Monday the 7th. She was going to do a walkthrough. So I'm just awaiting an update just via email. And there's probably nothing going on now with the snow. So that's kind of, on hold, I'm sure, for the winter. And then there was a back and forth as a follow-up item from 12:3. Jen Anderson emailed me the reply from Michael McGuffey from US Playground Surfacing regarding, it was a letter from, I believe, September of 2020 from the Mass Architectural Access Board regarding another project, and basically affirming that the rubber mats were appropriate for playground surfacing. So I had asked about the other surfaces and such, and so he replied to me. I ended up sending the commission another email this afternoon where Mr. McGuffey did respond regarding my question regarding the letter from September was speaking only to the issue at hand, and it had to do with the playground. So they didn't delve into other matters that weren't in front of them. So I had asked, is the Silver Lake sand, is the grass area that is the walkways in various parks also accessible? And to which Mr. McGuffey went back to the ADA compliance issue and the speaking of how useful these mats were. So I actually went back to him this afternoon after emailing the commission and asked, but is it AAB approved? Okay, because I think what has happened in the past is that the term ADA compliant has been tossed around with many of our discussions without necessarily acknowledging that the Mass Architectural Access Board, if it has a stricter rule, is the one that applies, not the ADA rule. So I wanted to make darn sure that a surface underneath those mats, such as sand at Silver Lake and all those grassy walkways, were also AAB compliant, not just the ADA compliance that Mr. McGuffey referenced. So I'm hoping for an answer, and if need be, you could call either Jeff Dugan at Mass Office on Disability or William Joyce at the AAB at the state level, just to make sure that although we are reasonably confident that there are no issues regarding accessibility of the mats that are being placed down, I wouldn't want to see us run into any issues after the fact. So does anyone have any questions about those letters or the communications I sent to you regarding the matting?
I liked the thorough testing that they did.
Yes.
It was, yeah, very kind of data driven, and I liked it.
Yeah, and they didn't leave any stone unturned, and so the letter or the finding though did say that it was limited to playgrounds. So I just wanted to make sure. I guess call me a rabble rouser, but I want to make sure that AAB also concurred that it was suitable for walkways over grassy and sand.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that will be just a non-issue. Anyone else have any? Who's talking?
It's Missy. When you,
Yes, Missy, please unmute.
yeah, when you say it's limited to playgrounds, just like the scope of what he was speaking about, or?
No, what happened is that rather than a blanket statement by the Architectural Access Board regarding these issues, Mr. McGuffey from US Playground Surfacing, his company is laying down the mats, used as an example of AAB being on board with these mats, a letter. I don't know if it was Newton or some other town, don't quote me on that. There was another town in question where the Access Board weighed in on the suitability of this matting. And in that letter, and it's part of our meeting packet, bear with me. Anyone have the meeting packet in front of them? hold on a second. All right, never
I
mind.
have it, but on another computer.
No, I
can
have
read
it.
it off.
I'm sort of timing out, but okay, so on the meeting packet, it was the letter had to do with, okay, it was an advisory opinion from September 22nd, 2020. And it had to do with a particular park called Farlow Park Playground. And I don't know what town that's in. And it spoke of accessible routes and matting as this rubber matting as an appropriate material required under, or the rules regarding accessible routes required under the 521 CMR 19.7. And that this finding applies only to its use in playgrounds. So they weren't, sort of like courts don't just necessarily affirm it, even though this isn't a court, they don't affirmatively go off in a different direction and start stating hypotheticals. They were simply commenting on what was in front of them, and it had to do it with the playground surfacing. So they limited their opinion to the scope of what was in front of them. And the conversation between Jen Anderson and Mr. McGuffey was the combined back and forth was saying that, and thus it is also suitable for walkways that are being done, which include grass and sand. This advisory opinion speaks only to use in playgrounds because that was what was in front of them at the time. So I was simply asking whether or not the AAB also concurred that grass and sand underneath these mats was also appropriate, not just by ADA, but AAB guidelines, which are sometimes more strict. So,
Okay, I got that.
and so it's in the meeting packet, the September 22nd, 2020 letter. That was from the AAB to Mr. McGuffey himself, because his company had been doing that playground in this other town. So anyone have any questions on that? I'm waiting, to clarify. And other than that, I like the matting. I've gone to the different parks and it seems very useful, okay, compared to what was. And it's meant to not break the bank. So, all right, moving on to item 5. All right, as a follow-up to various discussions we had in the past, not just in our last meeting on December 3rd, Superintendent Jay Cummings, we had spoken about the grant that he had applied for through Mass Office on Disability for a ADA self-eval. And it had to do with, and it ended up being limited to evaluating the physical buildings and playgrounds, okay, inside and out in the playgrounds themselves. And Missy, you had drawn our attention to some prior discussions regarding learning platforms. So Dr. Cummings did write me a letter. It's part of the meeting packet dated December 7th, okay? And he speaks to the Edgenuity learning platform, while also that letter of reply working in harmony with an email chain between us that I sent to you folks. And it basically was that it was clarifying that if the ADA self-eval for the schools were awarded, whether it would extend to learning platforms. Dr. Cummings said, no, it would not, okay? And actually, it's in the email chain is in the meeting packet too. He didn't believe that online access would fall under the scope of the grant, nor any other grant that he's aware of. And that at this time, he had no intention of self-evaluating the accessibility of all online programming, noting that he strives to make sure that the platforms and software are compliant and continuously work with parents and students to meet any individual needs that arise that aren't fully realized. Between Dr. Cummings' reply of 12/7 and our back and forth emails on that same day, does anyone have any comments regarding that having addressed the question that was before us by Missy on 12/3? All right, we will simply
If nobody
clarify.
else has any questions about it, I'll just say that I
Okay,
think
Chrissy.
that he responded.
I was just gonna say that I know that time was of the essence for a lot of people, but as the Office of Civil Rights likes to reiterate as many times and as often as they can, you know, timelines do not matter to the OCR. Accessibility is still the priority. And I would say that everyone did their best. And I understand Jay had that sentence kind of starting them off, but regardless of that, he did a great job. I mean, I looked at the Ingenuity site and I looked for their VPAT. Not every place or every spot on the web, not every software is totally compatible, because you're trying to really look at integration of lots of different software into existing systems. You also have a lot of people playing catch up. For example, we do a lot of patching. We have Zoom, we have Calendly, we have Collaborate, we have Kurzweil. I mean, it's just a mismatch. And to this day, we've been forced to, by state regulators, to purchase software that is not accessible. We are forced to do that. And so you can't sue us. You can't sue the certifying boards of NCLEX. They purposely, for, you know, integrity of exams, you cannot use screen readers. So anyways, it's hard. I'm hoping, though, that everything continues to improve at a very fast clip. Zoom is ready to release a really awesome new version of itself that will allow us to have these unreal virtual backgrounds with more options for accessibility. And I know they're working on artificial intelligence, voice captioning. So for what it's worth, I'm glad we brought it up to Jay to make sure he knows we're doing our job. But I really do have to say Jay did a great job pulling that together, because a lot of other people are very envious of Grafton, that we are being, that attitudinally, there's a lot of, how should I say, there's a lot of hope that that things won't be ignored if new things come out, that they'll still try to be on top of everything and move forward in terms of access and equity. So I just did some homework on this last week, so I'm really excited to share with you. So
Thank you, Christy. Does anyone else have any comments regarding this agenda item and Dr. Cummings' reply and emails? Yes, Missy, you need to unmute.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I
You
can.
Okay. So I did read his emails and the letters and exchanges back and forth. And I do agree with Christy that, you know, obviously this is the hand we were dealt, you know. But that being said, I do agree that it was warranted to ask, because it is the equivalent of the physical access. So we should kind of, even if there's nothing we can really do about it, even if the transition plan involves simply saying, this is where we're at because this is what's available, and we're going to do the best that we can to patch and put together anything that we can, at least acknowledging and including that information would, I think,
Right.
be helpful. Just to be able to
I
identify it as a problem if there is something that is a limiting factor, or something that, you know, even if there's nothing really that we can do about it, just acknowledging it and then just making a commitment to address it in the best way possible.
Right.
think it's important.
And thank you, Missy, for reminding us. We did actually have that question, and it wasn't entirely clear whether the Mass Office on Disabilities grant program for self-evals would extend to services. Okay. So this clarifies that. And my hope is that coronavirus will sooner rather than later be behind us and we'll be back in person. But it sounds to me like they're acknowledging that no platform is perfect and they're working their best on a one-off if something does arise to try to fix it. So
Matt made a good point at the last meeting as well, that is there a way that we could reach out to see if there's some kind of training that could help maybe make more awareness of some of the features, a lot of these programs have a ton of features that, obviously you'd probably spend a long time training somebody how to use all of them.
so
Is
the
there something
parents,
that, we
who's
can
using
reach out to find
Edgenuity?
out?
Matt, did you have a comment or question? I don't know who.
No, Edgenuity is the full remote platform.
Okay, all right. And so it's what everyone's using.
So it's only the people who are fully remote are using Edgenuity. That's it.
Okay. Oh,
Yep.
okay. All right. So all
And
right.
it's only the
that's-
high schoolers and I believe some middle schoolers. For the younger grades, they are using an integrated Google Classroom.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as Christy said, it's this weird mismatch of stuff that the teachers are all trying to patch together, trying to figure out the tools that they understand and they can work with, and that also works with the parents and the students. And the parents and the students are also trying to work with all those different tools as well. It's a big challenge, but
And I have to tell you, it's like every week I get a Google, I get it in digest form on Saturday. I cannot tell you how many offerings there are of the newest the newest Chrome extension, do this, do that. Half of it's sales pitches, some of it's free. You really have to have discernment about how much you want to do, because you don't want to be chasing after these pretty shiny things.
right.
And it's also, can I tell you right now, I am so tired of going to trainings, and I'm paid to go to trainings. I mean, for parents, it's really hard. I just will say that, if you're looking at total integration, I will just say this, I'm very leery of a lot of things that Google's trying to do to make it all in one, because not everyone can do no one can do all in one. I'm just going to say that. We may be forced to someday by state technology standards, but it really is concerning, the disparity between people who have disabilities and I would say people who don't have Wi-Fi and technology, where there's so many stressors above and beyond that if anyone is learning, that's great. That's all I'm going to say.
All right.
Daryl lives this every day. I only do it
Yep.
during semesters.
All right.
So.
All right. Any other comments, or are we ready to move on to item 6 minutes? All right.
So I guess
moving on.
that
Oh.
my question was, I know we kind of dovetailed off of that, is there something specific that we're doing to put all these pieces that don't work together? Is there some kind of centralized plan for, has that been addressed in any way? Obviously it's not going to be perfect, but like top 3 concerns or top 3, integration issues or something, like how is that trickling down to parents and caregivers and the students themselves? How is that being done? How has that been considered?
That's like trying to wrangle cats right now. And if there is a goal that's been set out, or a mission statement that Jay has for the next 2 years, that's great. But probably particulars aren't even in place, because we are literally marching off the map. There's not a good map for what we're going forward with. And the only hope is that we're all being agile, and that what we're using and purchasing is accessible and equitable.
I guess to just piggyback on that too, that it's all down to the individual circumstances. And I do feel like, Grafton's pretty strong at working through those individual circumstances to try to, resolve the issues that families and students are having. It's, it- some of these issues are systemic and they're not things that can be quickly resolved. So I think, there's just a little bit of flexibility that everybody has to have, as,
Is there like
as
a
this,
team chair? That's a contact, a point of contact for those concerns. It's being passed down to, like if a parent or a caregiver has a concern about how to utilize the platform. Just
Yeah,
a
I mean,
strictly an access issue, not like a, a service provision issue. I'm talking about
Yeah,
just the access. Is there a team chair or is there a point of contact that's listed somewhere specific for that purpose that's being provided to parents? So that way, at least if nothing else, if there's a direction to go to per.
sure.
You know what
I
I
mean, I
mean?
think it always goes teacher, principal, superintendent.
Follow the same chain as they would otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay. Are those people trained to answer those questions, or are we kind of just fielding them and finding the right person to answer them? Could there be more like organization in that? Like,
Can I just say, and I've been to the two most recent Grafton CPAC meetings, and CPAC and Bob Wall, the special education team, they are like actively working on a lot of this stuff. They're actively reaching out to parents. And, I had brought up some of my concerns about, can we make sure that the Grafton school system is doing enough to make sure that parents who might have disabilities or communication challenges, are we making sure we're not missing any voices there? And so we've had some productive meetings on that, but it does seem like, especially in instances where we know that there are children who have special education, 504 plans, IEPs in particular, they're very actively like working with parents. They're soliciting any challenges if they see participation, any issues dropping off. Like I know I have some students who are on top of everything, and two of my kids are definitely not. And I can tell you they are reaching out to me constantly to see if there's anything they can do. They're reaching out to my kids. So Grafton is active in a way that I am honestly impressed with, considering the year we've all had. And I think at this point of the year, our level of exhaustion. Um, but, it was impressive because we know they've purchased over, I believe, 400 or something Chromebooks. I remember they were reaching out to people if they're having challenges with internet access, reach out to us. We're going to find ways to get that to you. They were very responsive to questions about, will we be making sure that children are getting enough to eat, breakfast and lunch wise, if they're not in school. And I've seen a lot of parent concerns, and I've been watching a lot of school committee meetings to make sure. And Jay is very, very open about how many communications he's receiving on just specific individual issues. Whenever possible, he'll direct them to the appropriate person or have them reach out to the principal, who I'm sure likely has somebody to speak to. And even when I throw them off the wall challenges, like, hey, are we doing enough to address potential challenges with parents who might be struggling, who maybe don't have a child in special education? Maybe they have a general education child and can't keep up with the emails. And I had almost an hour-long conversation with someone in the school committee, who then had a long conversation with Jay, and he was going to reach out to their tech team and see if there was anything they could do. So I have to say, like, while there might be specific issues, I haven't heard of any specifics, but if we do come across ones that are falling through the cracks, I think any one of us making sure that it reaches both the school committee and Jay, they're going to make sure, considering how responsive they're being, I think they're really going to make sure that they are trying to address it from every avenue possible.
yeah, I won't disagree with that. I guess what I was trying to say is just that in terms of like workflow and asking the right person, was there somebody, because it's really a technical question. So if you're asking, like if I'm asking a team chair, I'm asking a teacher, they're going to be helpful and they may not have an answer for me. Then that has to go through 3 more people. That's 3 more emails and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So like, that's what I was wondering. Has there been some kind of, for that specific purpose, like you're having a question about a specific, how to use the technology? was there a point person? And it doesn't seem like there is, even though it seems like the questions are getting answered. And I was just wondering if maybe it would be more efficient to have somebody who could then filter that information as a contact person. So that way there's not. all
I'm
the
sensing that
information.
there's progress being made. Jen, do you sense that with everything going on with your conversations and that Dr. Cummings speaking with the tech support, that we may reasonably anticipate some type of communication on how we may address the tech support questions that Melissa is bringing up?
It's really more for the school's benefit than it is for the parents, because I think they are answering people's questions. I just feel like if they're not, maybe we can make it easier by not having 20 people answering questions.
And maybe I'll
Like
switch
that,
that to
you
the
know?
schools. Whoever needs to, then whatever the schools. Jen, did you sense that, and I'm sensing that people are working feverishly on a daily basis to try to address these matters. And my hope is that there will be some point person or persons identified sooner rather than later as tech, sort of like an IT line or IT support to address these issues. So although it hasn't happened yet, maybe we need to just sit tight and hope that this happens soon. I honestly don't think that anyone's sitting on there, just sitting back doing nothing. I think there's probably more activity going on a day-to-day basis than people could imagine to try to address, Missy, this very issue as far as who are the go-to people. So
I will say, at least from my experience, each of my high schoolers who are using the Edgenuity platform for their remote learning were assigned remote learning advisors, and they each have a separate one. But it does seem like these remote learning advisors have had some specific training on how to handle some of the generic issues. I think the first few weeks were very bumpy, and there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of challenges with the calendar. Students having problems with iPads and whether or not the microphones were working for certain classes and things like that. But it seems like all of that's really been weeded out. And I've even had other teachers reach out and help. They're able to reset or eliminate portions of the courses that come up that might not be something that's conducive to being done at homes, like in the labs and the science classes and things. So it seems like, at least behind the scenes, I'm speculating here, that they must have, the ones who were designated as specifically remote learning advisors have had some training on these platforms and are more intimately familiar with what types of classes. But then within that subgroup, within each subject, it seems as though there are the teachers or whoever might be in charge of the department might have the familiarity with what they've chosen as comparable courses to be having for students in each grade level that would be equitable to what they're learning in the high school. Because I know those needed to be decided on before students could have those courses assigned remotely at the beginning of the school year. And that was, very last minute. They were throwing all that together. So I know some students got started a bit late on some things, but I feel like there's probably a lot in the background, and a lot of it that I don't know a lot of the nuts and bolts. And again, this is a lot of me speculating, but I've seen kind of like how rocky things initially had been, especially with Edgenuity and the way it was working on the iPads, and some of the quirks, that my second grader was working out with the Google Classroom and Google Meets and having all the students, on cameras and things. And where we're at in December now, it seems vastly, vastly different. That, the high schoolers are having regular Google Meet check-ins, that they are, both of my high schoolers also have academic support. So they have daily like video support sessions. And at multiple points, there are also additional teachers in the specific grades that if their grades are lower on a specific subject, those teachers are saying, hey, can we set up a Google meeting? Can I help you with some of this stuff? Or if you're falling behind, can I help you catch up? So I actually, I can't speculate or I don't know for certain what specific steps they have taken behind the scenes, but I will say, they're not showing how overburdened they may have been, but they're really impressing me with how quickly they're adapting and how far we've managed to come from the beginning of the school year in terms of just the people who are assigned to help with things. They're managing a lot of the tech issues. And I think they do generally just encourage us to email tech support because, I mean, they've been just fantastic through and through.
You're saying that those people who are the remote learning advisors are additionally fielding a lot of those technical questions. That's kind of what my question was, like, you know, because your team chair may not be the right person. I mean, they'll help you, but they have a lot of other things they need to be doing too, and that they probably don't know all the ins and outs of just to make workflow and make everything run smoother. And it sounds like they have it together.
Right. Then maybe we can sit tight and see how this rolls out.
I'm satisfied with that answer.
Okay, awesome. All right, moving on to minutes. All right. I had some back and forth with Missy, and then I had a question to both Darrell and Christie. All right, so minutes, 9/17/20. Thank you, Missy, for forwarding the draft minutes. I had sent them to the rest of the commission today from Missy, and being on such short notice and the length, I didn't feel it was something that I think it would be premature to try to tackle those tonight. But we've always had a sort of any minutes that weren't approved would continue to be rolling as a placeholder on the agenda so we wouldn't forget them. So if we, I think we could all agree to table the September 17th minutes to our January meeting. Anyone in disagreement?
I'm happy to do that. I just wanted to recognize Missy's work on that. They're really good. So the draft, clearly there was a lot of work put into the meeting minutes, and we've had some
That's
long
what I wanted
meetings.
to know.
Thank you. Thank you,
I
Miss.
appreciate it. No, they're really good.
I
Yeah,
knew they were long, but I just wanted to make sure that. So when you're looking at this, is my first go around with this for here. So this is what you want
yeah.
in terms of draft. This is okay like this. This isn't
I
changed.
I think so. I mean, look, what are meeting minutes for? They're for the public. They're for the public to understand the discussion, the votes that were made, who motioned and seconded, and how votes went, and all that. And I feel like you smashed it out of the park. Those were great.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would
thanks.
agree with Matt that they were very succinct, and I think being a visual person, I think they were an easy read, like with the bullet points and things like that. Not just as a committee member, but as Matt said, for public consumption, I think they were very succinct and readable. So I appreciate the time you spent putting into that, Missy, so we could tackle that in January. And as an aside, but related, the state puts some, I'm not going to say heavy burden, but they put significant responsibility on committees regarding minutes, whereby on the front end of things, I just prefer to, and a lot of committees haven't been doing this, but putting a meeting packet together. On the back end, the state expects that the minutes also are a sort of quasi meeting packet, that any of the items or any of the things discussed, let's say tonight, that I put in the meeting packet, basically to the extent that those are discussed here and are part of the minutes, that they actually end up on the back end attached to the minutes as part of them, that it isn't just the discussion, but it's the documents themselves. So Missy, if you need any, help in that, I'll be glad to offer assistance, because that wasn't always the way things were back in the day. It would just be the minutes, but now it's whatever documents like that. A lot of them, it may seem like duplication to us, but for the person reading the minutes, it's essentially another meeting packet.
No, I
So-
completely agree with you that I feel like somebody who's not been here should be able to read that and get a reasonable understanding of what occurred at the meeting. So
Mhm.
what I will do is, in addition to the way I've structured this, if we discuss a document in
Right.
context of that, I will actually reference that. And if you're lettering them or however you're doing it, if you wanted to like, because in a regular legal document, you would like
Right.
figure A or B, whatever it is, like, or just like referring to the email from September 22nd or something, I'll make sure that there's a way to reference that document in the moment.
No, but I think what the expectation is that the document is actually, that email or that document becomes part of the minutes. Similar to the.
So you want me to pull it out and block it in there, right into the minutes, the quote of what was said?
In other
right
words,
there?
as part of the document in the back, the expectation of the open meeting law is sort of creating a meeting packet, but on the back end, it's the minutes and the documents themselves, even though they're referenced in the minutes, those documents like Dr. Cummings' letter. Because what would happen is the meeting agenda and the meeting packet would otherwise be separated from the minutes. So the state asks that the minutes are the sort of be all and end all of what that discussion was, not only the reference point in the minutes, like whatever bullet point that we discuss a certain email, but a copy of the email itself, to the extent that it is shown or that it was a handout or that we're referencing it, okay?
Okay. So not
So
just in the meeting packet and the agenda, you want me to take a copy of the document and attach it to the minutes as well?
it
when I'm
becomes
submitting
part of
it
the
as
minutes.
draft?
Yeah, it becomes part of the
Okay.
minutes. Yeah. They've, if you, and it's, a lot of committees aren't doing it, but I think that, again, for public consumption, I think for grant applications, I think those people who are looking at what we do are, some of those individuals are going to hold us to that higher standard that we didn't always, it wasn't always outlined in the statutes. So,
Okay, so what I hear from you then is you guys like the bullets.
oh yeah, I
you
think the
guys
minutes
ready
look
with that?
fantastic. What
Okay.
the state is requiring is that to the extent that there was a document discussed in there,
Yeah.
um,
I'm just summarizing what all, because I'm
Right.
just gonna, moving in terms of our process, because we had
Sure.
discussed, just if we have a minute to briefly kind of like touch on that, like, this is the format I'm gonna do this in. I'm gonna do what you said, include the document if it's referred to, even if it's in the meeting packet, attach it as well and refer to it within the body of the minutes as well.
I mean, like in the meeting packet, the handouts on the, those trifolds, I don't know if it was in September, but, on, and such, that if you look back at the meeting packet, it is duplication, but this, if you look at what our handout was when we were sworn in, the open meeting law, and then there's a guide on agendas, there's a guide on minutes, things like that. That is very, it seems laborious, but it is spelled out what the expectation of the actual
That's fine.
minutes is. Yeah,
Anytime we reference the document, we'll just attach it to the minutes regardless of where else it's attached.
yeah.
So we'll add that to the process and,
So,
the, minutes
do you
as
have,
well.
Missy, the software? I don't know if it's built into Adobe, but on PDFs, merging PDF documents, are you able to do that? If you had multiple PDFs documents,
Okay,
rather than scanning things in, there's a right side pane on some of these software programs that may be an enhancement to
I'm
Adobe.
using a Chromebook.
Okay,
So we looked it up how to do this today because it's not what I'm
Alright.
used to.
let's chat
Yeah, well.
outside of this
that's-
meeting on how to perfect combining documents so that it doesn't become too tedious and overwhelming, while adhering to what's expected under the open meeting guidelines. They're pretty strict. And
I
I
can't just
think
link to it. I can't just link it to the direct page number or whatever.
a lot of
the meeting
times those
packet.
links, sometimes those links expire. So,
Okay,
but I think though, we have some latitude when we're discussing the ADA self-eval. That's the document on our town website. it's 150 pages long. I think that's an exception where we wouldn't necessarily need to do it, but there have been handouts and things like that
Right.
that have been part of the meeting packet that need
Okay.
to be attached to the back of the minutes. So
Okay.
we can discuss this outside of the
Yeah,
meeting on how
yeah,
to do that.
This is just the technical aspect of it. This isn't any, we can always offline via email.
Yeah, yeah,
do that piece of it.
yeah,
are
we'll
we
work
then-
together.
So for the
Pardon?
next meeting, I'm gonna be working with that other document as well at some
Okay.
point. So do we need to interface, do I need to work with Matt and Catherine, I guess?
Well, the
for
thing is
the
that
next
I
meeting, or
think-
how are we going with that?
Yeah, I don't think it's feasible to attach a, because of the width of an Excel document, if we were to try to shrink it to an 8.5 by 11, it would be unreadable. So I think that
I
would
thought we
be,
weren't giving that to the public right now.
No.
I thought that, my question was in terms of just because I'm talking about minutes and how that pieces all together. Am I connecting with them over between now and the next break, or do we, over the break between now and the next meeting rather, or am I?
are you referring to minutes or you're referring to your role as?
Well, I'm referring to any kind of documenting. I'm just including that, looping that into this conversation in terms of my homework between next, because is there something else that I need to do in terms of that document in between this meeting and the next while I'm doing the
No,
minutes and everything
not that
else,
I'm aware of,
updating
no.
everything?
No.
Okay.
But we'll connect outside of this meeting to make sure that moving forward, including, I guess, maybe after the fact, because you actually, once the minutes is submitted in draft form, I mean, I guess there's nothing to prevent you from submitting it as amended to include those documents, or in the final document that you submit to the town clerk, it includes those various pages and forms and things that we referenced in the meeting.
Okay, well, I can clean them up and present them with those documents for the next,
Okay.
like as we discussed, so.
10/22
else,
of 20, moving on to the following meeting, 10/22 of 20, Missy, you weren't there that night, and I asked Daryl and I asked Christy, did either of you take minutes that day, that night? And neither of you had. Now, all right, so the 9/17 minutes that you did, Missy, arose out of an untaped meeting, so that was impressive. 10/22 was taped. That meeting is on GCTV's website as a Zoom meeting. How do we want to tackle that? Because when I looked at that meeting, the recording, it only starts with me having started the meeting. I think maybe prior to the meeting, it's possible that I may have initiated some question because you weren't there, Missy, as to who may take it. But so there's no minutes or no author right now. Does anyone want to volunteer? I know that there may be some issues with a person who wasn't present. Can they actually be the one to then transcribe it and vote on those minutes? I don't know what the rules are as far as signing off on saying that you have viewed a recording.
You certainly can watch a recording and do minutes.
Okay.
You can't vote on them though.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit of a weird thing, but
Okay.
my understanding is if you're not present for a meeting, you typically abstain from approving the minutes.
Okay.
But we,
From-
you can transcribe basically the content of the meeting from the video.
Are you okay with that, Missy, to go on the GCTV website and look at that meeting of 10/22?
Yeah, as long as I'm not, I was actually gonna say the exact same thing that Matt did, is that I'm comfortable to transcribe them, but not comfortable to vote on them.
All
So
right,
that's
perfect.
Completely fine with me. As long as I can access that, then I will get those typed up.
Okay.
No problem.
All right, thank you. And then 11/19, the meeting, non-meeting, okay, I guess you'll be putting that together. And then on 12/3, I still owe you, Missy, and I apologize. 1A, you had to step aside and I had done the parks piece, item number 1A. I'll get that to you so you can combine that. And then we can hopefully just rattle off these minutes and then be up to date. All right. So we won't be voting on any minutes tonight, but my hope is that in January, we can rattle these off and then just keep up on them, one at a time. I've been on committees before, and it's no one's fault. These things sometimes can creep up on you, and it just becomes tedious, and sometimes it can run away from you. So, all right, and we can then tackle that in January for September, October, November, and then December 3rd, and then tonight's meeting. Old business. Municipal training date and program to be determined. Jeff Dugan. I'm waiting a reply from Jeff regarding his availability in January, as well as I've asked him to also give me an idea of what the agenda and training would look like. I think we had all agreed that that would be a daytime meeting, probably about 90 minutes. I emailed Carter Terenzini, our temporary town administrator, regarding his thoughts on staff availability and a date and time, that it would be a daytime, and that ideally, recognizing that department heads and other stakeholders are busy, that while certainly they could look and view the training after the fact, ideally their attendance would allow them to ask questions that come up in real time versus a lost opportunity if you're not there in real time. So I'm hoping to get a date set and then maybe ask others to help coordinate this. I don't know if it would necessarily be, it wouldn't be a meeting of the Disability Commission, but one of us could probably facilitate some type of Zoom meeting that maybe someone in the TA's office would host.
Was Matt going to meet with him for something regarding this? Did I hear you mention that last time?
You know what? I'll tell you, I don't recall. And this goes to
I have it in the minutes, but they're not approved yet. I can go back and look.
I don't recall. I think what we have ahead of us is a bunch of lists to keep track of this stuff. I think a lot of us have volunteered to and plan to talk to different people. And I think that it's kind of gotten away from us as a committee. Christy.
So just the update, and I believe Jen brought this forward before. We tried to meet with Carter and he said you might want to wait until there is someone full-time in the position. So we're in a holding pattern.
Let me ask you, Christy, I thought that the gist of the conversation was that he was on the cusp of being in front of the select board for another 90 days contract, and that was the issue, that it wasn't necessarily that you were waiting for a full-time, hire, or at least on this issue.
I guess the implied message, I read it as, do not bother me with this and let someone who's going to be full-time. I don't know what he has his hands full with, but I know working remotely is a bear. I mean, this should have been done a long time ago. I know we want to do this, the sooner the better.
Right.
I can reach out to Carter again and say, hey, Carter, can I please do something and give you such and such a date? I mean, I turn things around real quickly with dates and programs for Worcester Public Schools or whoever, and we can do it with a week's notice.
Are you referring to the municipal training with Mr. Dugan or something else?
No, just anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be with Jeff. I mean, we can say, hey, look, we need to have some opportunities here to get different people on board, really answering your questions about accessibility, how to communicate accessibility needs, and how to be responsive to those who come in terms of customer service to our offices. I mean, we could run quite a few things while we're waiting for Jeff. I mean, I don't know how if Carter, that's again a conversation with Carter. What do you really want to do at this point? He may say just do something small until the big people, come through the door.
Okay.
But I don't want to miss an opportunity to get on the to get some training in.
We,
Right.
to refer back to what Christie's saying, in our September 17th minutes, that we haven't approved yet, I did document that we had discussed some of the things that Christie had, said some of the things that, regarding this training. My question for everybody is, in the meantime, while we're in this holding pattern, would it be valuable for us to kind of firm up what our asks are, our wish list kind of in terms of this training would be, and like maybe kind of firm up some of those, like, so when we finally are able to sit and have that conversation, it's not like a big, we're not starting from that.
I'm wondering, well, I had asked Mr. Dugan to give me an example of what a training or an agenda would look like. And concretely, maybe he can give me an example from another town, and then we can work from there. I think that we're not going to tackle everything all at once, but by continuing to, by having at least one and then moving forward, to have these on a regular basis, that, that will be useful to the community and the stakeholders and department heads and such. So maybe that will help, rather than try to think of stuff that we would want to tackle, have Jeff give those to us and feed those to us based on programs he has either run himself or facilitated, or maybe some of his staff have run. And then the concrete examples of those agendas and programs would be in front of us as a sort of menu from which to choose. That's just, my thought on it. In addition, even though the Zoom meetings and trainings allow live interaction, I think that coronavirus has put a kibosh on a lot of the GCTV programming from the volunteer producers, of which I am one, and have been out of the loop for a while. But I see that my volunteer efforts could be used for not only trainings but interviews, local interviews, on any number of topics, and that doesn't involve coordinating anyone, but the interviewer, the interviewee, and the GCTV staff that are recording that in the studio. The other thing I'll mention regarding education, not only these formal programs from MOD, but if you have a high enough quality video and you are in your living room interviewing someone, that can be edited and uploaded onto the GCTV platforms for viewing, either through the TV or online, streaming video and such. So I think that there are many platforms we can use, many vehicles we can use to get the message out on a one-off basis. Yeah, Daryl.
I'm just reading my notes, Roger, from when you and I met with Jeff and
Okay.
what he said he could do for trainings. And basically he said we would try, it's best to pull together a larger community. So municipal community, business people, you name it. And he was going to review disability rights law book, resources for Title II, and a guidebook he would present at the meeting.
Okay.
And so he was going to send us flyers and links to those things. And I don't remember if he did or if he did not.
I think he had sent us, well, the flyers were in our prior meeting, those trifolds that became part of our meeting packet
Yeah.
on disability rights laws. But having the information in front of us, I don't know how to then take it to the next step to have a sort of facilitator or a trainer package that stuff up and present it to a larger audience versus here are these handouts, read them.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. But anyway, he told us to look at Situate.
Okay.
And I have a ton, I mean, personal emergency preparedness, he has a workbook for that. So he's talking about pulling in the Housing Authority, Council on Aging. So, anyway,
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to double back with you, Daryl, outside of the meeting context to refresh ourselves on, and make that discussion more fresh in my mind, so we can move forward with actually acting on it.
yeah, I don't think he sent us all the links because I have to do one, brochures and 2 copies of law book and the workbook.
Yep.
2, the links so that we will understand what he's discussing in preparation for him coming to our meeting in September. And then 3, I had CPC request forward to Jeff. So I don't even know what that means because that was back in July. But
Okay. Okay.
anyway, thought I'd look it up because I remember we had a great conversation with him, Roger.
We did, and it was a few months ago, and I wish it were
Well,
fresher
it
in
was
my
like
memory. but
7 months ago.
It was, yeah, 7 months ago. This COVID thing has been, my head is spinning. And I'll tell you candidly, I'm not the sharpest at the end of the day.
No, it's
Between, I think the end of the day can be rough. So, all right,
But
well,
so, I mean, I think moving forward, Roger, let's talk about this again. If we have
Okay.
to call Jeff, we will. And then get the information to the people who are reaching out to Carter so that they can figure out what to do. If Carter says no, he doesn't want to do this right now, I'm
Right.
not sure. We can force him.
Right.
It would not be a huge challenge for Carter to organize, basically a Zoom meeting for staff.
And that's what it sounds like. And actually, Jeff wasn't sure he was gonna do a Zoom meeting. That was another, like, I don't think that he had even done trainings on Zoom yet. So he
Right.
wasn't- he
So
wasn't-
that's, I feel like that's one of the keys. It has to be virtual at this point.
Right.
Totally.
But they have virtual staff meetings every week. And so I don't see why they could not tag on an extra 45 minutes for just to get the ball rolling.
Yeah,
Right.
And
You
I'd
know,
be
it
happy to
just-
do something about just disability awareness and introduction to disability to kind of prime the pump so that when we get into some more deeper conversation, people have an awareness of what disability, the scope of it is, the
Perfect.
prevalence, the numbers, what it looks like for, Grafton. There's a lot we can do in just a short period of time just to get people talking about it. What's been their experience? What's their background with disability? Did you know? There's some real good stuff out there.
and I'm happy to support you with that, Christy.
Yeah, Daryl and I can do a training. We'd love to do it.
Right.
I'd like to see that, that invitation to request accessibility tied into a more global, training.
I can't hear you, Melissa. I've been having such a hard time hearing you tonight.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I'm like, I gotta turn up my
Oh,
hearing
yeah, Is
aids.
this better? Is that better?
I don't know.
Can everybody else hear me?
So Melissa, you
I
had said
can't
that
hear
a
you.
larger audience, and I had actually had an email a couple months back on this with Jay Cummings. And he had thought of some stakeholders, if the subject matter may be geared a little bit away from even though we're one town, we oftentimes speak of municipal and schools. He was willing to engage with other educational stakeholders regarding having some type of similar training,
Well, we
more
talked about
community-wide.
this with Matt at a previous meeting. I have it in there where we had said that it might be worthwhile to provide some more training to, like we said, the teachers and educators on all of the different features of Zoom, just to help use what we already have. Maybe just don't know fully how to use everything. It's a lot.
Right.
So just, that was something from a couple of meetings ago, but what I was referring to just now was when Christy had said, in the conversation she'd had with Jen Anderson with recreation, about the invitation to invite accessibility. Are we going to be extending that information to more than just the recreation department to kind of help tie that all in? That invitation that basically set the tone for that, where every department that interfaces with the public is inviting, the community to request accessibility wherever necessary, or like the web resources or whatever in relation to this. I was just saying that I'd like to see that kind of, in terms of like Christy saying she was maybe willing to do some other trainings generally. Would that be something that would be worthwhile?
I'm not sure I'm not sure I'm understanding your
So
question.
we're
as-
waiting.
Well,
We're waiting
let's add
for.
it to the list, because that's just this, I mean, there's so many different types of training. That's definitely going to be beneficial for the town as well as businesses. So let's
Like, we're waiting
keep
for
that in
people
mind.
right now. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. We're waiting right now. In the meantime, would it be possible to provide something like that we know is going to be helpful without necessarily a hard direction or a hard technical knowledge base, to kind of just offer something that we know is going to be generally helpful?
I mean, I think if we have a series of these things, once we get rolling, we could probably have one a month,
Yeah, but that'd be
and-
like a good place to start. I think, like, she already has all the information for it, and I think it kind of puts them in a frame of reference for how to kind of see what people are looking for and what they need.
I mean, Missy, are you okay with, if Jeff Dugan doesn't do something, that Christy and Daryl would be the start,
Yeah,
do-
like, we're sitting here waiting, like, I'm not that they're not doing something valuable, I'm saying, but meanwhile, while everything's happening at the pace that it's going to happen because of Corona and everything else, we could be doing something like that with the resources we already have. Christy provided a lot of really great information that I think is widely applicable to a lot of different departments. Just on that one subject alone,
right.
I think we should be doing something besides, if we can.
Well, I think that
like a
we're
small
not going to
training.
have, whatever trainings we have are not going to tackle everything all at once. I think that,
No.
but we could, it's similar to in-services and things like that. We could come up with some ideas for subjects for a calendar of these
Yeah.
type of things.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like I don't want to say like a webinar, but kind of like a meeting, but not a meeting. We do
Right.
this instead.
So maybe we can come up with some ideas and double back in the very near future with some ideas on some things that would be pertinent to the broad audience.
Right.
I don't think we're going to come up with these lists tonight.
No. I'm just that one particular one. I'm using it as an example. I'm just saying, in the meantime, we could be maybe utilizing some of the resources we have to the extent that they're applicable to a broader audience, and it also helps us to kind
Right.
of establish a rapport. with
So
people.
so you are using Jen Anderson as an example of maybe the Parks and Rec piece.
Well, I was just referring to it because that's the conversation we had at
Mhm.
that time. That's who we were talking to in that moment. But that
Mhm.
invitation to request accessibility can be anyone, any department, anywhere in Grafton that works with the public. I'm sure it would come up and be applicable across multiple,
Right. Then let's outside of this meeting kind of brainstorm about a sort of calendar and
Yeah.
what that will
It's
look
just
like.
an idea. I'm not,
Right.
there's no plan associated. It's just a thought.
All right. All right. Next item on the agenda, update and disposition on previously discussed ADA MAAB issues. Montgomery Wood Trailhead. I had been in contact with Rob Aberg. I know, Matt, you've talked to Rob. I had actually requested the Grafton Land Trust through their attorney did reply to Architectural Access Board. So I requested if Rob could forward me a copy of that correspondence, but what I also did is because Bob Berger was looped in, I kind of duplicated that activity by requesting of Bob Berger, I think it was actually today, in an email as to if he had an update regarding that Montgomery Wood and whether he was given that correspondence. So I'll await that communication from either Rob Aberg or Bob Berger. Matt, do you understand this issue as I'm currently describing it, or have you had conversations? I know you were in touch with Rob.
Yeah, no, I haven't had further conversations on that.
Okay, so let's see where that goes. I think that however things pan out, for the most part, when we're dealing with an outdoor venue or outdoor areas, things get tabled in the winter. That doesn't mean AAB is giving people a reprieve on answering them, but however this plays out, nothing's going to happen in the winter anyway. All right, so that was under old business 7B number 1. So 7B number 2 is Mike's Mobile. In that same email today, I did ask Bob Berger if there was any update. I think that the first step would have been him letting the business know that there had been a complaint. So I'll await reply on those two fronts. The Mike's Mobile had to do with the shed. There was a step up into the shed, and the complaint by Mr. Ricker was that it wasn't accessible because of that feature. All right, 7C Zoom platform. I put that in as a placeholder, quality of video and audio and closed captioning. I know rev.com is what the school committee uses, and I think that was discussed at $20 a month. The town could use it for other meetings. It wouldn't be just every committee would have to purchase it. It would be the town would purchase some type of service that could be used by multiple committees. So Laura Often, school committee chair, had given me the rev.com link regarding the details, but also sent it to Peter Carlson and you, Matt. So do you have any more familiarity, Matt, on rev.com? I didn't read all the details.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You purchase the service, and then the only challenge is that on a per meeting basis, you've got to basically input the API information to enable the service to connect to that particular meeting.
I saw there was some, it seemed that it was, if you didn't do it all right and in succession, that you wouldn't end up with the recording, that you had to line things up, and it would take someone who really knew what they were doing and have some lead time on any particular meeting to really get things situated.
Yep. Yeah, you have to take an action on a per meeting basis, as I mentioned. It's not super complicated. It really isn't. So I don't know. Christy
Okay.
Christy's worked with this quite a bit, so she can probably speak to it a little bit better than I have, but it feels to me like it's something that could certainly be done for at least a majority of the meetings that we have. And it's not perfect. There's a little bit of a lag. It's a few seconds lag, but it's not, compared to not having anything, it's great and a very economical service.
On this, I had mentioned quality of video and audio regarding Zoom. It was only the other day that I went on the GCTV website to go back to see which of our meetings had been Zoom recorded and which had not. And so it was all new to me. And I was surprised at how grainy and difficult to understand these Zoom meetings were. The words and the mouths weren't matching, and certainly even to someone who wouldn't normally need an assistive device to watch these things, I think I would have benefited from closed captioning, just because the Zoom platform, maybe not Zoom, but each of our individual computers, the software we're using, the lighting. I have this light over my right shoulder that if I were in a different room, you'd be able to see me much clearer. And so we all have these shadows or lighting in our backgrounds that sometimes each of our individual computers cause some of the issues. It isn't all about Zoom. It's each one of us and what our backgrounds are, what our lighting is, and in each of our computers. Are other people noticing this with Zoom or on Zoom meetings that maybe it's not the Zoom platform, that it's all our collective hardware that we're using?
I feel like there's so many things that could make it go wrong that it's really hard to say which one of them it is. Like, I know that sometimes, like, how many computers are being used on the one, how many meetings are being run at the same time per connection, like here, like there's so many things that I think make it, I don't know if it's recording the way that you're seeing it. The person, is there a person for Zoom that hits the record button and then it records whatever they're
Well,
seeing?
I
How
am.
does that
So,
work?
okay, so what happens is in the top left of my screen is a record button and I can pause it. I think there's one or more other meetings going on tonight. Usually I see Bob DeToma's name on GCTV, but I guess if I don't know where this recording is being stored, but on the top left of my screen is I'm the one that presses record and pause. So like if I had been remiss in doing that, this meeting wouldn't be recorded. All right. But I can see that it is recording. You can't, I don't think.
Yeah, we
On the
can
top
see.
left is, you
Yep,
can
we
see?
can see it.
Yeah. there's a
Oh,
little
okay,
dot
then
that says-
So
If
by
I pause
participating,
that-
it's implicit permission to be recorded.
oh, okay, gotcha. All right,
That's Mass
so,
state law. Yeah.
all right. You learn something new every day. So that is basically telling everyone you're being recorded. Gotcha. Okay. So I
you
think
say it
that,
right in the beginning of the meeting. So
okay. So as I'm looking at each of you speaking, depending on how quickly you speak, the sound and the lips don't match even in real time. So I would benefit from closed captioning in looking back at our own meetings. So,
Well, in looking back at our meetings, it will be closed caption because Zoom, this goes up to the cloud. They close caption it for us. And within probably 3 to 4 hours, we have the closed caption version, which is posted on the website. We can't post it on the website without the closed captioning. When you're
Okay.
talking about the real-time captioning, which is what rev.com does for us, it's
Okay.
really for the Zoom participants who are hard of hearing. It's not for people who are deaf, because the lag time is quite significant with rev.com at this point. And most people who are deaf don't read English the way we read English.
okay.
Sign language is a totally different language, which is why I go to meetings and there's an interpreter in their box
Right.
and they're interpreting because their language is not English as
No.
we speak it.
I had taken an ASL course in college and I'm familiar with that whole, you're right, it's not English. So,
I think that having the rev.com would be a huge improvement because most people are hard of hearing. And until we went into Zoom rooms, a lot of people didn't understand to the extent that they need to be able to see or read lips for communication purposes. And this has created a whole new group of people who appreciate the closed captioning. So if we can get the rev.com, I would totally encourage it, Roger. I sat through a demo with them. We chose as a college not to use them, but for our purposes, for that price, and the fact that they're going to be doing more, and I hate to use this word, but it's true, integration with Zoom, so that they're going to be faster and they'll be better coming up with their next release.
Okay.
We chose not to use them because of that lag time. So we're going with CART services. We have a provider who will give us probably a 1-second lag time for conversation. And we felt
What-
that was important for students who needed to be able to discuss
So what
topics
platform
quickly.
what platform is that?
CART?
What is it called?
CART is captioning in real time,
Okay,
capturing audio in real time. And that's a totally different service for folks. And I'm just going to say we couldn't afford it.
okay, how much is,
It's $80 an hour.
oh my God, okay.
It's,
No,
it's
maybe
the
we need
equivalent
to
of
find-
it's a court reporter. Yeah, it's very
Oh.
high end. So for what our purposes are, though, I agree with what Matt and the school board decided. The rev.com will be fine.
Okay. So who's going to tackle this, initiating this? I mean, is it the select board that, I just lost my pen.
Well, didn't
Um,
well, we need a town license. That's the bottom line.
Okay,
Right. I'm happy to ask for that.
okay,
And Matt, when you do the ask, if you need help, let me know.
Yeah, no worries. They
Rev?
already have it in the school department, so that they're doing rev.com with all their meetings.
Good.
okay.
So we're
So-
looking for a rev license is what we're looking for.
Yep,
All
absolutely.
right. All right, and the thing is, being the chair and, getting the meetings running, I mean, that would be something I would be ready, willing, and able to really dive into as far as the training aspect, but I think a few of us also need to be cross-trained in that as well, if I'm not available, that we wouldn't want to, just because one person knows it and then they may be absent, that a meeting goes by without captioning, especially if people are coming to expect that. So Matt, I guess, and this may be a discussion for another day and not even our committee. I guess it would be then made available to any committee, correct?
Yes, it's a per count thing. So
Okay.
I know finance committee has one, school committee has one, the town has one. I think Parks and Rec has one, DPW has one. So there's a number of different accounts. Each of those accounts, if we were to sort of ask the town, quote unquote, to make, these meetings closed caption enabled, each one of those would be $20 a month. But, in aggregate, it's not a ton of money, because the town probably has 5 or 7 accounts total. Everybody shares. And so,
Right.
it's not a big ask. It's not a big cost. It's just,
Right.
I think to your point though, each of the meeting organizers does need to have a little bit of training, and it's not particularly complicated, but
Okay. something
we'll need to go out, and I don't know who would do that necessarily, but I don't think it would be super challenging. So
Right.
I don't know.
I'm entering some normalcy and some sanity in my work schedule. On a bell curve, the end of the calendar year is horrific. So I feel that there's some light at the end of the tunnel. So I actually look forward to and having some time to really dive into this and learn this. So I appreciate you reaching out, Matt, and then let us know. Is that just a reach out to Carter or,
Yeah, it'll be more to Joanne.
oh, Joanne Duncan? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
You mentioned that
And,
in the September 17th minutes that we were going to be reaching out to Joanne for that as well.
Wow. Okay. You're sharp, because I didn't, thank you, Missy. All right. Awesome. This 7D was just a play. This was just a placeholder, catch-all, roles, assigned tasks, reorganizations, length of meetings, agendas, workshops. I think that this is something early on in 2021, whether we could maybe have a workshop to discuss these things about, our processes, keeping meetings going, how we're going to assign tasks and such. So I just kind of put that as a catch-all, and I'm looking back at this, and this completely provides no direction to anyone on what my thought process was. But I think that this is just something that I think moving forward in the early part of 2021, whether in regular meetings or a workshop meetings, we speak to processes, we divide tasks. We had done it about a year ago. I think it was back in February, we had a workshop meeting, but then there's been a lot of turnover. So that turnover has caused everything to be shuffled, and now we really don't know where we are. So item 7D here is just my catch-all thought that it's my goal that we tackle some of these processes and get back on track on some of these assigned tasks in the first quarter of the year. So, anyone
I
have
think
any?
some of that's gonna change, because when we started that, we kind of have a little bit more direction from what Matt put together.
Mhm.
I think that when we're looking in terms, I think that when we're dividing things up, it's not gonna look the same.
Right. Well,
Even
we'll
if we're
have,
doing it,
and then we'll,
you know what I mean? We're going about it differently now.
all right, Daryl. Unmute.
Because I looked at my notes from Jeff Dugan, most committees do set goals, and they set around about 10 goals that are manageable, that capture the expertise of the people on the committee. And perhaps once we get through what Matt and Catherine have laid out really well, how we need to approach the municipal side.
Right.
Perhaps we can look at some of the goals other committees have set, and that's a workshop. So that will carry our work forward.
Are you talking other committees in town or other disability committees?
Other disability committees.
Okay. All right.
Said the
And-
last time that we were gonna use that document to kind of make a strategic long-term plan, which is kind of what Daryl's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think if people go on the MOD website, they have really good examples of goals.
Yep. And I'll quickly say that my goal, my New Year's resolution for 21 is threefold. It's really diving into ADA, MAAB, and also the MOD, the Mass Office on Disability website. I really need to be more focused on. I think there's a lot of resources, a ton of resources that all of us could be really bringing into these conversations, that it simply takes time. And so I find that I will have more time on my hands to really tackle these things, and make use of not only the MOD website, but yeah, just perusing other town websites to see who's really doing it, so that we're not reinventing the wheel. So,
Daryl, what should we be looking at?
What do you mean, for goals?
Yes, I'm,
I mean, the first thing we have to do
it
is.
helps me a lot as a like member of an town entity
Yeah,
to focus on, I don't think we should be talking about 10.
no,
Based on my experience, like we've had a lot of meetings, and I think there's been a lot of reach out to, different stakeholders, and there's been a lot of progress. I think it helps me a lot to just have like maybe 2 or 3 things to
Yeah.
focus on. So where on the MOD website?
right up front, and right, it wasn't hard to locate, so it's been.
Okay.
July since I've been on.
Yep.
But I remember reading it and thinking, oh, okay. This makes sense to me. I mean, honestly, Matt, the first thing we have to do is finish disseminating the report that we got and making sure everybody understands what their responsibilities are. And
Yep.
then whatever needs to go on in the budget for the future,
Yep.
that needs to get done. I mean, that's the first thing. I mean, you and Catherine tackled that in such an awesome systematic way. And now we just need to bring it to fruition.
And a lot of this stuff doesn't require a lot of budget. Like
Well,
so
that's
many things
great.
on that list, so many things across all of the different facilities were things like accessible signage, the location of switches, those type of things, they don't cost a lot of money.
Yeah,
And they should be done immediately. So it's those kind of things that yeah, I think we've got to take that, and I agree with you. We've got to break those down to like who's going to have the conversation from this commission,
yeah.
and who are they going to talk to?
Mhm.
That's really like it's the low hanging fruit. Let's just focus on those things, and there can be a significant amount of progress made if we just narrow our consideration of things, because there's a lot that's out there to do, but it feels like we need to kind of crawl and then walk and then run. So I think
So I mean, if we're gonna have a workshop, it's divvying up that and figuring out who's talking to who and getting it rolling, because I feel like the list that you guys generated is a checklist for the different departments.
Yep.
So there's not a lot they have to do except for check it off.
No, you're absolutely right. And as far as the funding goes and the projects and all that, as soon as we've kind of provided that advice
And that, yeah,
and delegated it and gotten a commitment to, okay, like you're responsible for these buildings
right.
in this plan, then we hopefully it will go like all the parks have gone, where Jen Anderson, she's done a bang up job with just taking that the whole plan. It's very detailed.
Yeah.
It's an excellent plan.
Yeah.
She's running with it, and that's exactly what we want across the town.
Right. And that's really what they should be doing anyway, once they
Yeah,
have the material and the knowledge. And that's the next thing we really need to do. So
absolutely.
All right. Missy.
So I do agree that the low hanging fruit, we should be getting all of that, but I think my concern is just that some of these things requires planning so far in advance. Like when we're talking budget, if we don't kind of get those things in process started, even though we're not going to fully address them right away, like we might be missing opportunities to apply for grants, we might be missing opportunities to like build it into the budget later on. So some of those bigger, more complex things, we do kind of have to have that conversation earlier, like sooner than later, I think. So we don't, does that make sense? Like, I feel like we're gonna lose track
I
of
agree
some
with
of
that.
these things.
Yeah,
Let
look,
me
we
ask you-
can walk and chew gum at the same time, right? You have to deal with that low hanging fruit, but you also have to like plant the seeds to be able to grow those things that are longer term. I completely agree with that.
Basically.
So Missy and Matt, I guess along those lines of this discussion, from a CIPC standpoint and a budget planning standpoint, I know that, has the ship sailed regarding capital planning for FY
has.
22?
Yep. All the requests are in, they've been prioritized
Okay.
and given back to Carter. So it's now his job to put it into the budget. So,
Okay.
yep.
All right.
There were some, let's see, what was in there? There were some counter height issues that were being addressed in the municipal center that were in the plan.
And a lot of these things aren't capital items unless you combine them just from the dollar amount.
Right.
So I think these are routine maintenance issues, a lot of them. So are we talking then, since the capital planning for FY '22 is already been submitted, and we typically don't do that in the fall, that we would have to plan this during calendar year '21 as we head into the fall for FY '23?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, and I think it highlights the importance of assigning ownership to each of the, items that are on the self-evaluation. Because then we can, have those discussions and basically the request process for anything that might be capital. And there's a lot of capital, potential items on there. Those would fall to the people who are responsible for those individual facilities.
okay. Okay, then we have some work to do to maybe combine some of these things for FY '23 capital. Okay, new business. The two items regarding library building and DPW, which I had thrown on the 12-3 agenda and due to time constraints, tabled them to tonight. They were simply on there because they were the two newer buildings that were outside of the scope of the ADA self-eval. The DPW build, well, I'll start with the library. The library, that hadn't started. It was only completed buildings and things like that were part of the self-eval. So I had thrown out a generic email to Beth Galloway today, who's the library director, and just starting the conversation about disability issues and things that are contained in the plan and what the library planning and building committee is doing. What I did do is I sent all of you an email chain that included Beth Galloway, who's library director, Mary Fritz, who's the chair of the committee, the library planning and building committee. Melissa, I'll send. Well, actually, if you look at the email for the minutes, you'll see these people's names. Ronald Paolillo, who's a project manager, Mark Sullivan, who's the owner's project manager, the OPM, Andy DeShane, clerk of the works, and Ken Best, the principal architect. Those formed the group that Beth had brought into the mix on the email chain to basically say, okay, things are on track, things will be accessible. Here are some thoughts that we had as this thing starts to materialize and more finished work is done. I don't know how much finished work is starting to be done on the inside, but what Beth had said is, either one of you, one of us, a disability commission, could come to one of the, or we could designate someone to come to the library planning and building committee meeting, or we can invite one or more people to speak and provide an update so we can have a Q&A at one of our meetings, okay? So what I did, at least on a preliminary basis, is after I sent that email chain to you, I emailed Beth back and said that it would probably make sense that I would coordinate things with Mary Fritz, the chair of the committee, to help coordinate those things. So I don't know how fast they're moving. I don't know what the time frame is for these things to start coming about, regarding bathrooms and counter heights and things like that. But they're all paying attention to this. But as we saw with some of the buildings, even the newer buildings in town, including police and fire, they ended up on the self-eval, okay? And you wouldn't have thought that they would have. And so just because buildings are new or are in process and are supposed to be up to code, things happen, and it's our role as a committee to keep on top of these things. So what I did is I initiated that communication with Beth, and I don't know what the committee feels, whether we would want to designate someone to go to one of their meetings, or would it be better to have us 7, being able to converse with someone who comes before us? It's 6 of one, half dozen of another.
Roger, what's the outcome? I mean, there's this communication back and forth via email. Do you feel there's a need for more
I think that,
in
I
person?
think it may be premature to have for us to start meeting if it's still a shell of a building. But I think as things start to get more closed in, and walls get put up, and bathrooms and elevators and turn radiuses and all these things start to come together in a finished space that is probably, right now, it's probably still a shell of a building. That as things progress toward it being open, that these discussions, we may want to just, have them come in and discuss the ways that these, even if it's not us, they don't need to, like, quote unquote, prove things to us, because there's a million eyes looking at disability access and that need to be signed off on. Okay. So we're not necessarily the disability police, but maybe we may have some ideas, or this conversation may provide an educational opportunity to the greater community of all the accessible features of this new building that aren't in the old building. Okay. So whether you want to call it a system of checks and balances, or call it an education to the community as to the accessibility features of this building, and even the materials that are being offered and that are part of the budget. Whatever purposes it serves, it may be a good discussion to have with them. Missy, are you raising your hand?
I agree, and I think that just to loop back, yep. To loop back, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. To loop back to the police station being, on the list, I think this is an opportunity to kind of have a conversation as those things are unfolding, and maybe like some of that can be avoided in those conversations too.
And I think it's important that we look on the library website. In looking on the library webpage, they've put it out there. There's a lot. I went on there just today, and there's a lot of documents on the library website as to how things are progressing, including schematics and floor plans and things like that are worth looking at. So I think we as a committee, before we just pop questions in front of them, would need to know and look at and review all of the plans for that. Because it may be a time waster if we're throwing questions at them that they simply say, it's on our website. Are you reading these documents, or are you reading these plans? So I think.
You mean the inaccessible website? Because I was just going to say, Roger, their website's a travesty. So
okay. All right.
We're focused on the new building,
all right.
but we're back to, it's the same old, same old.
Okay. So maybe then this communications, this grant writer communications position, to the extent that this individual, Mr. Blake, has that communications background, that maybe he would be a go-to person to really, on a day-to-day basis, be available to address things. Jen, you got a question?
I was just going to say, as a part of the ADA evaluation, was it not recommended that we have someone as our designated ADA coordinator? And shouldn't this be something that we should be having ongoing discussions of, hey, ADA coordinator, we know these new buildings are going up. Can you tell us, what you've done in terms of taking a look at the plans or making sure that things are good as they're progressing? Because no one individual here on this commission should be feeling like they're in a position like, I need to know specifically how high this counter needs to be and all
Right.
these other things. Like, we can't micromanage things to that extent.
Right.
And realistically, we should be relying on our ADA coordinator to be handling that. And we should be asking the ADA coordinator, are you paying attention? And how long has it been since you've been paying attention? And can we make sure we're paying enough attention so we don't have to pay for these fixes down the line?
So is it a question of basically asking Bob Berger, what are the touch points in the process? And who is he communicating with to make sure things that it's just not, oh, Bob, now check the building, we're ready to open, and then we find out things aren't up to snuff. So,
I think that's a sensible approach. So
Okay.
the idea behind all of this is that, look, we've got 2 new facilities that are coming online. We have an expanded library and a DPW building. What are we doing to make sure that we're not adding to the list of like remediation
right,
issues, right? So that's
Well,
the basic problem here.
What I was saying too.
Jen, I agree with what you're saying. It's probably not this commission's role necessarily to be going through those designs and doing the walkthroughs and all that, but somebody should be to make sure that, you know, one of the things that I noticed was that we have, you know, a ramp in the new fire station. It wasn't that, you know, it's the new fire station one, it's not that old. And we have a ramp there that isn't compliant with ADA regulations, which are, and, you know, so that's the sort of thing that we don't want to be introducing new issues. So we want to make sure that though, as we're building that, and as we're putting those switches and controls and, you know, putting furniture in and, you know, all of those things that have shown up in every single building that we own in Grafton, I don't want to be continuing to make things worse.
right.
So,
And Matt, I
And
totally
along those-
agree. Because even a state building, I sat in a meeting with architects and the state for one of our buildings that was the newest building on campus. And I didn't know I was sitting next to the woman from the Disability Commission who signed off. It was a travesty. She signed off on it. You cannot open one window in the building. It's 5 stories tall. And after having UMass Boston go through the whole ordeal with chemical sensitivity syndrome because they built on top of a parking garage, everyone in the state knows you have to open windows. And now guess what? During the time of COVID, the second newest building on our campus is the unhealthiest building to be in.
oh my,
Wow.
So you would think. So yeah, you're right. We do have to watch for this because there's so many different perspectives. So Roger, if you want to
I already
have us be a liaison, I'd be happy to be that person. I know Beth Galloway really well.
Okay,
I'm a big library supporter. I mean, unless somebody else wants to do it, I'm happy to do it.
okay,
Because I know, I mean, it's not to, like we were saying, it's to be a help, not to be a babysitter. I don't know a better term to say it, but you know metaphor I'm trying to be. I'm not trying to be
Right.
a hammer. I'm trying to be a let's think about all these different aspects.
all right.
And one of the things architects usually are the last to think about is deaf space, hearing space, amplification. They put in materials that make it worse for people with hearing issues because they're looking at the bottom line. So there's a lot of different aspects we could bring in to say, let's modify this now before it gets built. I mean,
Right.
I'd love to do a review of it in terms of deaf friendliness and view of mobility, you know, there's so many different lenses to look at this. And, you know, they just do what they know they're supposed to do. They don't always make it aesthetically pleasing. And that's sad too. I don't want that to become, I want it to be a great space for anyone.
Right. So do I need a motion on that? Or are we just gonna do it by consensus that you'll be the liaison, or? How do we, Missy? Or Daryl, you both kind of raise house, kind of,
Who
I
said-
Missy.
move
Oh.
that we make Christy Proctor the liaison to the library.
I
all
second
right.
it.
All right, second, was that a, Missy, you seconded? Okay. All right,
Thank you.
motion,
Yeah.
all right. All
I
right,
want to say, I really appreciate that you mentioned the fact that the site is not accessible and some of the other features, particularly with the library and checking ebooks out and booking, reserving like the passes to things, doesn't get lost in the building process too. So that's the other reason why I think like this, that you're a great choice for
Right.
that, because I know you have a lot of experience with that.
so any other discussion on the motion to have Christie be the liaison to the library? All right, hearing none by roll call. All those in favor, Darrell Reining,
Aye.
Christie Proctor,
Aye.
Matt Often,
Aye.
Missy Lackey,
Aye.
okay, Catherine Dorr,
Aye.
Jen Pearson,
Aye.
Roger Trahan, I declare the motion carried unanimously. Congratulations, Christie. You've taken a boatload off my plate. You are, you
I
know
feel
what?
like a winner.
You know more about this stuff than I do. All right. So you are the person for this. I feel that you could do a better job at it than I would. So thank you for taking that
Oh,
on.
you're welcome.
All right.
And the good thing is I already have a relationship with Beth and
Yeah.
Jan and Cindy.
All right. You know Mary Fritz?
And, oh, she's my neighbor.
Oh,
I've
that's
known
her.
Mary since our kids were in preschool. So
Yep. Awesome.
Although she moved.
She
yeah,
moved.
she moved. She's right around the corner from me now.
What street?
Oh,
She's on Keith Hill.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
She's across from Steve Fleming's house, right by the power lines.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You know, you live in a small town when.
Right.
So, all right, awesome. All right, so, and then, on the DPW building, I, as part of my, email to Bob Berger regarding the land trust and Mike's Mobile, I did ask him about, the last time he did a walkthrough regarding compliance, because I read somewhere that they continue to do some finish work and things like that, that they're still finishing the building. And so I'll await his reply as to whether he ran into any issues in the DPW building. So that's under 8B DPW. So 8C, report of the Disability Commission for the 2020 town report. Daryl,
I think I move that it's time to adjourn, Roger.
8:30?
So somebody can second that and we can have more discussion, but it's time.
Well, I think we need to designate someone. And Missy, do you want to do the town report? You look at 2019?
Oh, is it time to do the town report already?
Oh, to write the town report. No, let Daryl do it. Daryl
No.
loves writing reports.
Now,
Oh,
Missy,
Do any
Miss-
of the stuff that. was
Daryl
done
is
in the-
amazing. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think
no.
whatever
Daryl.
You guys want to do.
if you could, Daryl, if you could hold off on that motion, we're almost at the end anyway. We just need to identify who's going to write the town report and then maybe schedule a workshop meeting, maybe not, and then we'll be adjourned anyway within the next 5 minutes.
It's up to you guys who, if you want me to do it, I'll do it. If someone else feels
You
super
know what?
passionate about it,
In-
I'm
in-
fine with whatever.
Well, I remember Daryl, we had gone back and forth this time last year and I ended up doing it. And so, I mean, I'm comfortable doing it. I don't want to be a ball hog.
I don't care. I mean, if you have a template, it's fine. I'll just
Okay.
bang it out.
Okay,
When is it due? When is it due?
it's due sometime at the end of like January. So what we could do is, we could I could just draft it if everyone's okay with that, and then make it part of our next meeting.
Mhm.
Sure.
All right. Everyone okay? You okay with that, Madam Clerk? Even though you're clerk, are you okay with me
No,
drafting
I'm
that?
fine with, I'm fine with however you guys
Okay.
want to make that work, you know?
Okay, then I'll draft that. Our next meeting is January 21 at 6:30. I just always memorialize that. Do you want to schedule a workshop meeting in February, or do you want to maybe discuss what that schedule should be when we convene in January, or do you want to do that now?
If we meet, can we meet in person in a large room, 8 feet apart?
Yeah,
I'd like to do that.
Might be better because we can spread it, you know. All of our
Would you
documents.
guys
I know
consider
Roger-
that? No, I'm not saying that we have, because it makes such a workshop. I'm
Then
just
maybe
thinking.
as we see how COVID materializes over the next month or two, do you maybe want to table this and decide in January what is the date that we should, rather than do that tonight?
that's fine.
We could
Okay.
do the high school if we needed to be inside, right? In the
Yes.
Yeah, we could meet right in the
cafeteria area
cafeteria.
there, that whole room, you know?
Yep.
We can meet in Matt Offen's garage.
Problem.
All right. So, all right. So everyone's in agreement that we're not going to schedule that workshop meeting tonight, as far as we'll wait until our January meeting to
Can you add
discuss
to the
that.
agenda though, Roger?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's add it
Yes.
to the agenda so we can be sure we're gonna talk about it. And I want to say that I
Okay.
everybody's busy, but I really feel very strongly that like a couple of really good workshop meetings are going to set
Right.
us up for a great year.
All right. I will accept now a motion to adjourn. Ms.
So
Ryan,
moved.
all right, do I have a second?
Second,
All right, motion made by Daryl, seconded by Jen to adjourn by roll call. Daryl Reining,
Aye.
Christy Proctor,
Aye.
Matt Often.
Aye.
All right, Missy Lackey. I can't hear you.
Aye.
Okay, Catherine Dorr,
Aye.
Jen Pearson.
Catherine.
definitely I.
All right, Roger Tran, I declare the motion carried to adjourn. This meeting is hereby adjourned at 8:40 PM.